Colleague Gardens.
Thank you, Chair. And while I welcome any opportunity to engage with you, Minister, I think it's frankly unacceptable that it's taken so long for you to appear at this committee. We sought a date earlier in the year before the summer recess when known issues could have been highlighted before the new school year commenced. We're already several weeks into that term and these cases have worsened in some cases. I think we all know that timing is key in helping children with special educational needs and disabilities. And it's unfortunate that the insights and points this committee has to offer wasn't prioritised. In your opening statement, you outlined the amounts being spent and the increase in support, all of which are more than welcome. However, the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities and Irish law are crystal clear on this. Each and every young person is entitled to an appropriate education, and the reality is that many children and young people are being denied this right. This committee's pre-budget submission, based on the contributions of witnesses, families and advocates, highlights the lack of school places, inadequate transitions between primary and secondary school, and insufficient ASD classes and SNA supports. Cork South West has no special school and a severe shortage of special classes. The classes in place are doing incredible work, but they're oversubscribed. Last week I raised a case of a child which your office and Minister Madigan's office are aware of. An autistic child. He's been moved between different primary schools, his education disrupted to suit the department's needs, not the other way around. He spent the last year in a non-ASD special class, which has led to his developmental regression. Needless to say, that's not due to any issue with the class, it's just not suitable. And now, even though an ASD class is opening in his closest town, closer than the school he's in at the moment, but it's already full and it hasn't even opened yet, so he won't get a place there. Minister, his mum said to me, after 8 years in primary education, how is the department not aware of the numbers coming through into second level education? It doesn't make any actual sense. There seems to be a complete lack of even basic planning. And this is just one example among many. What do you say to his parents, for example? My next question relates to SNA provision. You'll be aware of a case with the Ballydehob National School that has had to fundraise to increase its SNA hours. And again, that's just one of so many schools. In my constituency, I can't imagine how many around the country. It's symptomatic of a significant gap between the identified needs of students and the SNA allocation and resources being assigned by you and the department. The system of assigning SNAs relies on old information and assessments made years ago in some cases. And when I raised this matter with Minister Madigan, she referred me to the appeal and exceptional review process. This puts the onus back on overstretched principals and teachers to do the department's work. In addition, Minister, more than 50% of all of those exceptional review applications result in the allocation of additional SNA or part-time SNA supports. So this very obviously illustrates the department's flawed and ridiculous approach to this. Finally, the summer programme, formerly known as the July provision, is also a major concern for the committee. We've called for the department to develop it as a standard and to ensure all children who want access to the programme can access it. Parents and principals have outlined their frustration with the process, the delays in announcing it, and the poor communication, not to mention the underpaying of SNAs. Ultimately, it's the children who suffer because of this disorganisation. What is being done to ensure that every school is available for the summer programme? And why aren't you announcing the scheme now, before Christmas, to support as many schools as possible participating? And also, can you specifically address the low rates of remuneration for SNAs?
Thanks. Minister.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Thank you, Deputy. Just in terms of the summer provision, Deputy, I have already alluded to the fact that there has been actually a substantial increase in terms of schools taking up the summer provision programme. It's not enough, and I'd be the first to say it. And I've also articulated very clearly earlier that we are looking at a whole variety of different models of best practice internationally, and even going beyond that to see what other type of resources we can put in place to facilitate schools who might not feel they have the staffing resource themselves. And again, I'd have to say to you, it is a voluntary programme. Staff can volunteer to be part of the summer provision programme, or they may choose for their own reasons and not to be involved in the programme. But we are doing and have put in place a number of measures this year to ensure that the maximum number of people would be able to avail of it. But we're not stopping there. As I say, there's a full review taking place of how the programme works this year. We are engaging with international best practice. We are also engaging with other groups and organisations who might be in a position to be part of this remodelling or revisioning of the summer provision programme. I think it's an excellent programme. I have visited many of them. I see them operate on the ground. I see the extraordinary benefit to children and young people who can avail of them. And it is my ambition that there will be an awful lot more schools finding themselves in a position to provide for it. In terms of the SNA, there is no assessment. There is no assessment required for SNA provision. I would say that in the first instance. In terms of the provision in our schools, we have more than 19,000 SNAs now in our schools, the highest number we've ever had in the country. The work of the SNA, there's no doubt about it, is hugely important, and tantamount to that, as we have seen every year, year on year, in the last number of budgets that I have presided over, we have seen a significant increase in terms of provision of SNAs. In terms of specifically reference the number of classes in your own area and the difficulties in your own area, again, I will say to you, Deputy, we are coming from a base that requires that we grow more and more and more. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But specifically in relation to your own area, there are 41 new classes in the primary sector within your own constituency, and there are 22 new classes at post-primary level. It is not enough, but it is significant progress from where we are. And we continue to advance that body of work, and we continue to prioritise. Testament again to the priority that we're placing on this is that 25% of our budget is now expended solely on the area of special education. It is being given a priority, and we see that priority manifest itself even in things like you've raised here, the summer provision programme, a €40 million investment, double of the investment over the last number of years, just to ensure that the maximum number of schools will be in a position to promote it. So look, there is a significant body of work that's been completed. There is more work to be done, but we are certainly putting the resources and we're certainly putting the ambition in to ensure that the maximum number of children are being supported.
Just on just briefly, Chair, sorry, on the point that I was trying to make in relation to the summer provision and your response being that not all of the schools are taking it up and it's a voluntary programme, that's the point. It needs to be standardised. When it's voluntary, you have children not able to access education. And the whole point the point of trying to get across is that children are entitled to that education. And we had throughout the summer families saying taking unpaid leave for the month of July, do they have to do the same for August? There has to be a standardised approach to the summer programme, so it's not the case that some children get it and some people don't. It's a necessity for some families.
Absolutely,
and just
Deputy.
briefly on you say that there's no assessment around SNAs. Perhaps I said assessment, I meant to say allocation. But surely when people go to the appeal and exceptional review process, they're appealing something, be it an allocation or an assessment, and then, like I said, 50% of those appeals are then granted. So the allocation is not working. And it's being put back on schools, overstretched principals. You're managing so much, particularly in a rural area, you have a whole school, all of the different paperwork, and to be re-appealing for all these things, then 50% of the time you then get an allocation. And then for those ones that are refused it, they don't understand why. They're fundraising to employ SNAs separately. And there's no shortage of SNAs when those roles are advertised. There's so many applications coming in. So there's no reason to not provide the amount of SNA allocations we hear for other things like the Children's Disability Network teams. Oh, well, there isn't the staff. There is the staff for this. And I didn't get a response in relation to my first question around if somebody needs an ASD class, there's a new one being built in their area, but it's already oversubscribed even though it's not built. Why wasn't there any planning done? For example, to say 8 years a child's in primary school. They know that that's coming up the line into second level. How is there not any kind of planning going into the amount of students that need either ASD classes, special schools?
Again, if I could just reply, specifically in relation to the assessment, you did refer to an assessment for SNA, so I was just making it clear to you that there is no assessment for SNA. There is, of course, in relation to every aspect of the education sector, there is always an appeal system. The appeal is independent, it adjudicates the needs of the school, the needs of the student, and it is an independent mechanism, and it is afforded across a whole variety of different aspects of education. In terms specifically in terms of ASD class and forward planning, there is very much so forward planning. For example, and we are better now, Deputy, and I would say this, we are better now than we were perhaps in years gone by. So, for example, it will be automatic now for all new school builds. We'll automatically have, for example, 1,000 pupil post-primary school will have a 4-classroom SEN base. Likewise, for depending on the size of the primary school, we will have that. The NCSE are charged with working hand in hand with schools, with CNOs on the ground, and with parents, because that is the model we would like to see going forward now, so as to ensure that parents have less of a burden, as you have very clearly articulated, that there's less of a burden being placed on parents going forward in terms of provision of places, specifically in terms of the summer provision programme. And I absolutely, Deputy, I do hear your frustration, and it is mine, that I want the maximum number of schools to be in a position to make, you know, the facilities at the very least available for the summer provision programme. But it is voluntary, and in fairness, I engage with many parents who would have been disappointed that that it wasn't being run in their schools, but they accepted the decision of the staff not to make themselves available for the summer provision. So it is for that reason, as I articulated earlier, we are looking at other models abroad now, and we are also looking at other groups and organisations who might well be able to come into the schools and maybe run these programmes. So I recognise that we do not have the maximum number of students being able to avail of this programme, and we are looking at alternative means now to see how we can do this going forward in a better way. But notwithstanding the fact that the numbers this year are an increase on the numbers of the previous years and on previous years again, but it is not moving at the, I suppose, at the greater pace that I would like to see it grow. Thank you, Deputy.
Very final point. I'll be really quick. I'm so sorry, but you said that I articulated that it somehow was taking stress away or a burden from parents. I didn't say that at all. What I'm experiencing in my constituency office, and I think everyone is really worried and stressed parents at the end of their tether that know there's a short period of time for intervention for their children to live a full independent life, for all of these different things, and that need is not being met. So I wasn't saying that any burden's been taken off parents.
Okay, thanks.
No, I was articulating that it is the job of the NCSE, as I would see it, to work with parents to alleviate stress and any challenge that they might face, and to make it more seamless for them in terms of accessing supports, or whether it's classes or whatever. I was very clear in what I was saying, Deputy. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.